And we are live. Welcome to the Snow Millionaire Secrets Global Summit. Here's your host, Domenic.
Hello and welcome to the Millionaire Mastery Secrets. I am Domenic, your host for this groundbreaking online event for the snow and landscape industries. We are in the middle of the second week of Hangouts with 10 Titans. Today I have a young man that will share with you the one thing he wished for. Someone told him when he first started out business so he could take himself to the next level. He's also going to share with us some important strategies and tips and some great stories of how to build a successful business. I am unbelievably excited and honored to share this information with you today. Now, what is the reason we're doing this summit? We're doing it for a couple of reasons. One is to bring this technology to our industry to be able to make it possible from your office, your home, your car, your smartphones, wherever you may be, and even in a bar drinking a beer, you could be able to watch two people have an interview. That's the incredible technologies we have. So bringing that to you and all these hiccups. And the second one is we are working on putting courses, putting coaching in this, also in this format. And let's face it, work with somebody for 3 months in the same price as working for one day when you come in on site. This is the technology, and this is what we're working on to do. It's not going to be easy, but we're going to get there. Now, I have just a couple of, before I introduce our guest today, I just have some housekeeping. This Hangout is in Facebook, and you have the comments underneath. You have a place to type in questions or comments. Please type them in, but they're on a 60-second delay. So if I don't see them, I will check back and forth, and then my great team behind me will probably give me a little crack in the head and saying, hey, got a few questions. So be patient, and I will answer every question, and so will our. Before I introduce our guest, I want to tell you a little bit about this Titan. Juan Torres. He's a 25-year veteran of the green industry and nationally recognized operation consultant and instructor. He has conducted training on tree care and other topics, not only in 50 states, but in Central America, the Caribbean, and South America. Today, his greatest is helping others implement new processes and structures and facilitating employee development at forward-thinking companies. I've known Juan over 20 years. From the time that he was running a tree service and he was subcontracting for us to the time he came to be the production manager in my company, one of those top 5% in the Northeast. His knowledge, his technical skills have made him one of the best and most sought-after trainers in the tree and landscape industry. His bilingual background and understanding of the Hispanic culture now makes his management skills one of a true leader. I've had the fortune to collaborate with him on many projects over the last 3 years, growing companies. Now, without further ado and further delay, I'd like to introduce you to today's guest, the multi-talented Juan Torres. Hello there, Juan.
Well, thank you, Domenic. That was quite of an introduction there. So my ego is pretty heavy right now. I can't even walk with it. It's so big. Thanks. Welcome, everyone.
Well, Juan, I know I've worked with you. I know that you work with some pretty amazing teams over the years. How did you get started in this landscaping industry?
Well, I got started as a young man, actually at the age of 16 or so. Had an uncle of mine who, this is all he did, was outside, trees and lawns and shrubs and snow, and he figured it'd be a good idea to have me join him, basically to stay out of trouble as a young man growing in the inner city. It worked out well, and I fell in love with the industry.
Yeah, I know what you mean when you fall in love over there. Is the air, just being outside, getting a tan. I see that you have a great tan going on right now.
Yes.
But what possessed you to continue in this industry? I mean, you started off as keeping out of trouble, but what makes you continue in this industry?
The interaction. You're always outside. You're in different properties, in different environments outside. You get to turn, forced it landscape into a beautiful manicured English garden. You get to work with different people all the time, different cultures, different backgrounds. It's just wonderful. You get to travel. You're outside. Most importantly to me is just being outside.
Yeah. So you seem to have worked for a few companies. Where do you get your experience from, Juan? Where do you over those years, where has your experience come from?
As the saying goes, you want to hang around with people that are positive, so that way you're positive. I did the same thing in our industry. I hung around with the best. I looked for the best and become part of the best team, so I could also improve myself and make them that much better with my skills. And but I try to surround myself with the best people in the industry and go where I need to go, even if it is the other side of this country, to be at a training session or a seminar of one of my colleagues. That's what I do. I wanted to be better. I wanted to do more than what I've had people before me do.
Hmm. What's the reason you want to become better? I mean, something is in your blood. Is it this young piss and vinegar that I call in the youth, or what's inside you driving you?
Well, I came into the industry, like I said, with my uncle, and realized that he had been doing something that he loved so passionately for 40 years, and he was nothing else than a foreman. 40 years. You could at least been a vice president or something with that much skill and knowledge, but it was never looked upon in that way, or he never made people notice him that way. He was content of just driving a truck and taking care of somebody's trees. Unlike me, I saw beyond that. I said, I don't think I have it in me to be in a truck for 40 years. I want to own the truck before 40 years. I want to own the trucks. I want to give opportunities to other people, and I want to train and educate other people to better themselves so they can reach their aha moments.
Yeah. Well, what are some of the companies you worked for over the years? I mean, you're all over the world here.
Right. I started out at a small tree service who was acquired by a larger national tree service. That national tree service changed names a couple of times, but it was still the same core group of people, just changing entity names. So that put me all over the country as I became one of their lead production guys. Every time there was hurricanes or storms or government contracts in other states, I would get sent in with with the core group of production leaders across the country, quickly excelling to be the leader of the production team nationwide. I was like their lead foreman. I was what they called a district foreman at one time. Then I became their national trainer.
That sounds like some powerful stuff, Juan. I mean, here you are, a 17 to 20-year-old person, and you're going into these companies, and they're asking you to lead this force. I mean, it's amazing. And what's happening here? I mean, what do you have something that you see it? You saw it then. I saw it, and when we worked together, and I see it now. What's in it? What's inside of you?
Oh, I just love it, and I think what they realize is my enthusiasm and motivation. Like there's no such thing as it can't get done. It can get done. Let's break it down. Everybody gets their piece. As a team, we can do just about anything. I just like what I do. I enjoy it, and I want to share that enthusiasm, motivation, and love that I have for the industry, and share with people that you can do something with great respect in the industry if you just give it time and go through and use the resources you have. People are not using the resources that are available by the companies that they work for.
When you mean resources, you mean what?
Well, as I work for a large landscape contract in the Northeast, and we had a university that they developed. And we will use it. We will use it, yearly to review paperwork, to review systems, processes. Where does, follow the work order? Where does this work order go after you fill it out? In case you filled it out incorrectly, what does that do to the rest of the system? And people just don't, give that stuff time. They just kind of like, yeah, whatever. It's there. Do it. Sit down in the class, but not pay attention. But you got to pay attention because that's what makes big companies great. A good company is not going to become great without systems.
Yeah, no, I can understand what you're talking about. So these resources are the tools, the systems, the processes, the technical, and most importantly, the people.
Absolutely.
So, what now after all these years in these companies, what you had a driving force again to start your own business. Tell us a little bit about that.
Right, and after being in these national companies for a long time, I feel that you lose the personal touch. The vision is not shared. The leaders of these companies will write down a mission statement or a vision, and after a while, it touches so many hands down. You got 2,000 employees, 3,000 employees, 10,000 employees, like the last tree service that I work for. So by the time that mission gets down there, it's watered down, it's diluted. It's not what it was meant to be, and I wanted to harness that and keep it small and create a core group of guys that were like second to none. And that's why I found myself being able to do so much in such a wide area with such a small group. I paid attention and I spent an enormous amount of my personal time, and the guys did too, because the guys wanted to learn and get better, so they gave up a lot of their time to become better. And I told them, I said, if you don't give up your own time to become better, and you're just not. I said, if you want to be the best, you got to dedicate time.
Right. Yeah, we had an interview yesterday, and Frank Mariani Sr. said the exact same thing: is constantly learning, constantly making yourself better. And I believe in that value too, Juan. It's a value that you don't you go to. Some of us go to college, some of us don't, and we have the school of hard knocks and the experiences, and that's very important. It seems like they stop learning after a certain period, and the majority that you see don't want to do that. So it's very enlightening when I see or hear from someone like yourself constantly learning, constantly making yourself better, constantly looking at something. That's a good trait to have, a good value to have.
Right. Every day you should be learning something, like my father says, because the day you stop learning something every day, that means you know everything. And I don't think that's going to happen.
It don't work that way, Juan. I swear it. You think I remember when I first started my business, and you think you know everything, or you plow through it. I could figure it out. But as you get better and better, and your team is coming on, and you're building your team, and you get to, like yourself. I know that you were on our team as the arborists. We didn't do that, but you did it, and you did it very well. But the more and more you get up there and learn, it seems, the less and less you seem to know. I swear, I think I'm at a level now, I'm a kindergarten level at this point.
And in certain topics, when you spread yourself so wide, you know a little bit of so much, but that's what you're there for. You move up into that leadership role, and that's what happens. You don't have to be the best arborist or tree climber. Now you're a leader. You got to inspire them. You got to give them the tools to become what you used to be.
Yeah, well, that is a leap. That is a leap of, and that's a leadership value. I agree, Juan. It's like, yes, I knew you did the best arbor work. I trusted in that. When we went to a property, and I see now even in new companies, Juan, what do you think? What's going on? How are you going to do this? What's going to be happening? The technical. Same thing on the other end. Juan, we have a group that we're going to train here. What do you think? Your culture liaison. I put my faith in a professional, or like a titan like that you are, an expert. So, now,
and that's what you have to do. You can't do it all yourself. You're only as good as your team, really. You'll see somebody that's very successful, like a Frank Mariani. He has a magnificent team, second to none, and that's what makes him so successful. It looks like he's the only person. He's the face of the company, but success is not all 100% him. He has a real important group behind him.
I agree, and he knows it too. And now, Juan, you're doing your own business. You made that leap. Has the road been easy?
No, it's been torturous at times. Very, very difficult. I had the core skills to do the services that we provided to our clients, but I did not have the skills that needed to run, the office, the P&L slips, the accountants, taxes, all that good stuff, HR. So when you start a business, you can't afford to have that core group of people. So you try to do it all yourself, and it just gives you stress. You get gray hairs and lose some of it. It's really, really, really difficult. There's no book that, or roadmap to let you know the things you should or you shouldn't do, and some of the mistakes you make are very, very costly.
Well, it is that way. Way back in the day, I'm the same place that you were. You get this, and you're out there in the field doing the work. You're setting the crews up in the morning. You're going out there. You're selling. You're talking to clients. But your life didn't end there. You come back home, and now you're doing this paperwork. You're doing the invoicing, the proposals, the check writing. And it gets tiring. It gets tiring. You add a family to that. Next thing you know is it's overwhelming. So
it is, and that's one of the valuable things that I would like to say to our people that are joining us is, like, make the investment early. That ROI, or that return on investment, that's exactly what it is. It's going to be a return on investment in the future, not today. People get focused on, like, how much money can I make this week. If you need to add another part-time person to take some of that stress off of you, you do that, because it's going to make you that much better. You're going to be able to, handle the difficulties of the day with your men with a better attitude, instead of, going to sleep at 1 o'clock in the morning and waking up at 5. Now you're already tired. You're short-tempered. All kinds of things develop from working 16-hour days, 6 days a week, if not 7 sometimes.
That's a good point, Juan. That's a very good point. And it's funny, I had a conversation with my favorite mother-in-law, and we were in a group together, and I knew that I was training and building something, and I said, well, I have a very big Hispanic production area, and I needed somebody that was an expert in this. Can I do it? Maybe. Can I do it at a good level? Probably not. That's when I remember I called you and come in. But I remember the mindset. Now, this is a hardworking woman in her life. And I think this is most of us, culturally, we're the same culture. I'm Italian, Hispanic, the culture is the same. Hard work and harder work and harder work. And it was like, well, you didn't make all that money. No, I didn't. Why? Because now I got a better product to a client when someone is better in that area. It's a hard concept to be able to do that, Juan. And even in the audience, it's a hard concept. It says, I don't do that well. Here's only an X amount of dollars. Should I make that leap? And should I pay that person? It's a hard sell, Juan. Very hard.
It is, and the same thing happened to me. They would just tell me to work harder or get a second job, and I was more like, well, we got to work smarter so we can make more money at the end of the day. Not harder. Yeah, I'm going to make more money, but I'm not going to be able to enjoy my life and my family, and I'm not going to have any free time to enjoy that more money that you're talking about. But that's that, Italian, Hispanic, background. That's what you were taught when you were young. Work hard. I mean, look at Italian Masons. They're hard-working people, and they're really, it's a tough skill to have and to grow a family being a Mason. But they do it because they enjoy it and they love it. They're most of all, the people I think are just happy, and they fall into complacency, and they're just happy to have a job because of the tough environment that they came from. They're just grateful to have a job.
Yeah, that is sometimes that happens like that. But you do see the people that love what they do in the industry, and it seems to attract work, or attracts, I don't know if you would say, energy, to be able to, people like to hover around that energy.
Right.
But Juan, you're working all over the world, and you're talking. I was just talking to you something you were doing in Brazil. Tell the audience. I really need. Do you have any stories of where you've been, and like a couple of places that you could tell us some of the? It sounds exciting. I mean, you're not down there because you're just handsome. You're down there for a reason. Any stories or places you could help us with?
Well, handsome is part of the reason, but no, when you look back at it, Domenic, I've never, in my wildest dreams ever, the first time I sat in a landscape truck or a tree service truck, did I ever think you could make some kind of career out of just training people how to use this equipment, or knowing about power lines, or how to install sod, or how to properly operate a mower. I thought you just buy a mower and you just go mowing. But it seems, and I have learned, that most people that buy a mower don't even know how to really mow. They just buy it because they know they just push it back and forth and it mows. But winding up where I'm at now, talking about going to other parts of the world, and I have been to other parts of the world to do what I do, and I say to myself, wow, I never thought that somebody was going to call me from Brazil or Peru that they're talking about now, and having contracts with the U.S. Armed Services. It's exciting stuff. It's like it makes you, it makes your ego swell up a little bit, obviously, of course, but it brings you back and saying, wow, I done something good, and you start looking at yourself, what did I do to make it here, and how could I share that with some of my peers and make them do the same, and in their careers. It's like, and that's what I like to do. I like to make the guys better. I like to make them work, not necessarily harder, but be more productive, efficient, and most importantly, safe.
Right. Well, Juan, you think about it sometimes, and you say, it's like, why do people still train, or how come they don't know this? Like you read these books sometimes on leadership, and you see things, and you go, well, it's all said and done. Well, yes, but there's a new set of people that come in. Like you look at even like modern, like Tony Robbins or something, and he teaches leadership. But reading back even before his time, the Dale Carnegies and the Napoleon Hills, you read that information. Wow, this is almost the same. And they always say, well, geez, you're not reinventing it. It's just there's so many people that need this training. So it's kind of exciting to be able to still continue, because there's another group of people that need that training. So it's exciting. So I found it very, what you're doing is amazing, especially going to another country. It must be, like you said, it's ego, thrilling, but at times it could be a little bit dangerous. I mean, arbor care is dangerous anyways, but it must be dangerous with the cultural differences.
Oh yeah, and you wind up going all over the world, and you're amazed at I've been to many places in this country that there's no internet. Still to this day in 2014, there is no internet available to them. When you go to 20 minutes outside of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, there's not even roads. There's just dirt. So there are places like that all this information hasn't gotten there yet, believe it or not, or this technology as we're enjoying it today. But that's what we're here for. We're the ones that deliver that information, that leadership training, or that power equipment training, and that's our job. That's our task. That's what I'm driven to do, as you are. That's why we're here.
Yeah, you're right. Like we talked about this technology, and you always say, "Well, Jesus has been around a while." Yes, it has. Nothing's getting wrong with that. But how you look at our industry and how do we utilize it? That's a big key. I mean, you are hands-on. But there are probably times when there's a lot of stuff that you could do, I could do, that can be done remotely. Everybody's saving money. Everybody's saving time. And in this society now, in this economy, that's what we're looking to do. So, yes, it's pretty cool. But that, again, I can imagine going to Louisiana, my word, going down a long dirt road and probably a few animals that you may have never seen chasing you around. That must be pretty interesting. That's for sure.
It is, and the cultural differences within this country alone are amazing, and the influences from the French down south, and and the Spanish out west, and the Irish and the Italians in New York and stuff like that. It's amazing. Those are all different cultural things that you got to deal with when you're training different people. Or you're out in the Kentucky Blue Hills, and it's just completely different. It's like you're in a different country almost.
Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit about that. One, when you go into a company now, the way I understand it is, what is it that you do? I know you worked with me sometimes with systems and processes. You're talking about you're going to places with technical skills. What do you do when you go into a company?
Well, what I do is we sit down with management, and they let us know that their concerns or the problems that they're having or the roadblocks they're running into regarding most of the time operational concerns or issues or workforce development issues. From that, we now that we have what they're now that we know what they're looking for, we go in, we make an assessment, And there's criteria that we have on paper, and basically check-off lists. You know, we're looking for certain things, and if they're having, let's say, example, a lot of eye injuries, we start looking, why are they having eye injuries? You know, are they wearing safety glasses? Have they been trained properly? Are the proper guards and safety procedures being followed when using a chainsaw or line trimmer or mower? And you start checking those off. It's going to give you kind of a picture. How many accidents have you had in 6 months? And has there been training before that or after that? Unfortunately, people wait for training when something happens. Now all of a sudden we need training. No, you need training before something happens to prevent those accidents. So that's what we do. Then we set up a training program depending on what we found, and we go in. We try to go in that it's continual, that we need to go later on in the year, and we have multi-year relationship with many utilities and government agencies across the country, because that's what it needs to be. I can't come and show you how to do something and and then leave and never check up on you again. Maybe you missed something and you're still having this reoccurring problem because something wasn't understood correctly, and that's where the whole cultural bilingual thing comes into play. It's like, you got to send the right instructor to the right training scenario. We have several instructors, so we pick who's going to fit this training opportunity the best for our client. Not just send anybody, because I can send Rip out to California and they're all Salvadorians or Mexicans. No, it'll either be me or Martin. We're completely bilingual, and we have we're Hispanic background. So you try to make that match so you can deliver that service. It's not just getting in there, delivering something and getting paid. You want to follow through. You want to check up on them. Similar to the processes you put in place. You just don't want to go in and give somebody a 3-ring notebook because they're going to buy it. They're going to use it for a couple of weeks and throw it behind the shelf. And then you have the whole set of 3-ring notebooks that never get used.
Yeah, well, I find that in many industries too, where companies are going into the same thing. Juan, is it's not a one-time affair. It's not just, okay, here's the stuff. And it's not just theory. We're in an information age. I mean, all of us, even in this industry, could go on the web and find anything out. There's millions of sites to hit for information. What I find is, how do you get it done? How do you do it? And how does that happen, Juan? I mean, you come in with theory, and people think this is one time. What are these struggles you're having with these? I mean, you said multi-year. Is that something that you go in and try to, with this economy and whatnot, keep you for multi-years? What you need? What is it that they do?
Right. You know how they say you have to earn your keep. You have to deliver what you're saying, and don't offer something you can't deliver. Under promise, over deliver is the saying, right? So don't go in there saying that all your men are going to be, CTSPs and certified engineers. That's not going to happen. We know that. They know that. So you go in there and you take little baby bites, as I call them. Take baby bites before you swallow the whole cheeseburger. So you go in there, you take baby bites. You're successful at this. You move forward, you're successful at that. A couple of them stray off, or they leave to other companies, or they have an accident. You come in, you check. I give a lot of my time. I always tell them, hey, listen, if something happens, you need to give me a ring. Please feel free to give me a ring. Maybe I can help you. But this technology that we're using now, it's like almost having Domenic in my office. Yeah. It's like, you're almost there. So this is just instead of having a high salary person, you can have I don't know if you want to use the word virtual manager, or virtual safety trainer, or a virtual consultant, instead of me going somewhere every day and this huge cost.
Yeah, well, that is so true. One day, could be a $3,500 bill, or 3 months of this work, like we're doing on Google or Skype or this go to my meeting kind of thing. Is yes, and you can get a lot done. Can't get everything. Let's face it. What you do, if you're going to train somebody in, how to cut a right tree or something, is maybe give them some education. A lot of times, I know that you'd have to be there to kind of really show them. Some things you need face to face.
Yeah, some things have to be, tactical. You have to have it on hands and do it on hands. But, we've come a long way, like you said. We can go online and type something in, and something comes up, and I can read a book on how to be a pilot, and I couldn't turn on a helicopter.
Right.
You know, so you can have all the books and information until you have that instructor next to you actually showing what this lever really does, not that you just read it. You're not going to become a pilot. You can read all the books in the world. You know, chances are, not saying that never, but because there may be somebody that's out there really, really smart and maybe able to do it, but for the most part, you need to have those hands-on.
Well, I have to tell you something, Juan. That's what I love about when I'm working with you and collaborating with you, and I bring you right in because, again, you take this information, whether it's systems, processes, templates, and make it work. It has to work. And you have that knack of just getting in there. And again, cultural differences with people, yes, but also it has to work. It just, you know, this is not information. Well, you need a work order system or you need work order flow. Yeah, okay. Is it working? Is it, you know, it's touching 3 or 4 different departments. Does it work? So yeah, it's a hard sell. Information's everywhere. Really getting it to a result. That's the key for us. That's for sure.
Yeah.
You know, Juan, you talked about a lot of training programs. Now, what do you see out there? I mean, you're in a lot of companies across, you know, continents. What do you see in these training programs? Are they there or they're not? What's going on with that?
Well, you know, the industry still has quite a ways to go, particularly using technology like the one we're using today. But when I started, there was no training. I mean, I remember my first day, they gave me it's a miracle I got a helmet. You know, so somebody thought that whatever I had between my shoulders was a little bit of importance.
Yeah.
I got a helmet. We never used it. It was always nice and clean in the back seat of the truck. There was nobody there for accountability. Things, you know, progressed slowly, and I took a great love for that, like making the guys, you know, like, listen, man, if you only put on your protective leggings, you wouldn't have gotten cut by the chainsaw. Think about that for a second. And they would look at me like I'm crazy, and they would give me excuses. It's hot. It's this. It's that. It's uncomfortable. Yeah, it may be uncomfortable. It may be hot, but you won't have 100 stitches in your leg right now. You know, so it's like you slowly work into it. I remember, becoming part of the international safety committee for the tree and landscape industry like 15 years ago. And a lot of these things were just like, what? I said, well, it's a standard. I says, you just open up the owner's manual and it tells you that you're supposed to be wearing this. I said, but nobody enforces. So now companies call us to make operations manuals, you know, safety manuals, best practices manuals, because you need to. You know, I find myself, the smaller companies, it's easier for them to do that. Because you only have 10 guys, and now you only got to make 10 little operation manuals. Unlike you have this $50 million monster, and now you got to invest $1 million in making this operations manual. So I think if you start young, it's going to be easier to move forward. But back in those days, we didn't have somebody guiding us. You just, it's school of hard knocks. You just went in there and learned the hard way. A few companies, larger companies, are very groundbreaking, and they keep up with the industry moving along. You know, like the Mary Annies and those people, they're forward-thinking people, and as the leadership gets older or moves on to guide and lead the company, they put in the right people. They just don't hire somebody off the street and say you're the new operations guy or manager or whatever. They look at it very, very carefully. You know how it is: hire slow, fire fast.
I like to think that, yes. Yeah, well, I agree with you, Juan. Is when this thing here is, you need a culture of safety, a culture of education. And again, we don't. You find again the smaller companies have this cash flow issue. Maybe don't have the culture issue also of a culture of safety. I remember going on some of the places. I was not a manager anymore. I wasn't a supervisor. We grew to a certain level. But it was annoying. It was always that I'm looking at the safety of this person. And sometimes you'd have to, you say, hey, you put those earpieces on, put those eyepieces on, or I'm telling you right now, I'm not going to see you here tomorrow. Maybe you get a little bit like that, but you need that culture to know that we mean business with safety. We mean business with education. So they're hand in hand. I personally don't see a lot of this education in there. It's like one and done, and it's troubling at times. It's troubling.
It is. It is. It's just people overlook at it. Just don't think there's any safety involved, and oh, you're just removing snow or plowing. There's an enormous amount of things that can go wrong when you're out plowing a mall parking lot. There's just things everywhere. Things that can go wrong with a truck because it wasn't properly inspected before moving it. Safety devices. Pedestrians, buildings. It wasn't staked out correctly, and if people don't have processes to know what they did or didn't do or forgot to do it, those things are going to happen, and that's what it is. Everything's basically winds up being preventative. You do it beforehand to avoid things in the future. Yeah. Not something happens and let's think about it now.
I agree. Now, Juan, you mentioned a little bit about like the different parts of the country, different parts of the culture. Do you train differently? I mean, you train the Hispanic group different than an Anglo group, different than someone like from Peru. What are you seeing as differences in the training that you do?
Yeah, the cultural differences wind up, the men wind up absorbing the information differently in the way it's presented. If I'm working with a group of Mexicans per se, my Spanish changes. I'll wind up with a Mexican accent. They're going to understand me better. They're going to feel more comfortable. And it's just like your teacher. It took you the first 2 months in school, and then you started liking your math teacher or your English teacher better than the other one. It takes a little bit of time to get comfortable. But if you can speak their language, it's going to be that much easier. And you do have to train people a little different. You just do. It's normal. It's just like training a 15-year-old and a 30-year-old. Completely different. Same information, but delivered in a different way.
Yeah. Well, do you find that for successful doing it that way?
Oh yeah, it's actually, as far as I'm concerned, it's the only way to do it. I can't send somebody from Sweden with a Swedish accent to Monterrey, Mexico, to train them on how to use a Husqvarna mower. It's just not. It's not going to be accepted very well.
Mm-hmm. Are you finding, Juan? This is just touch a little bit upon this again. Was because I found this to be interesting. Is over here. Do you find it? That we're making mistakes in this industry? Is that one of the mistakes? What are the mistakes here with this comes to this training here?
What I see is that overnight stuff. They'll give you sometimes what they call like a tailgate safety 15-minute little training session, and people think that's the answer to everything. It's not. It's 15 minutes of something that you've been doing for 30 years wrong.
Yeah.
So if you want to correct that on some guys that have been there for 20 years doing something wrong, and now you're trying to correct them in 15 minutes, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It takes a father how many years to tell your child, don't touch that outlet, don't touch that outlet.
Yeah.
It takes a couple of spankings before they even listen. Yeah. So it's the same way. I don't think the time and effort and sometimes the resources are allocated correctly for to make these important changes that need to be made.
So that is the truth. That's a good point you're making, Juan. Now, Juan, I know that you're into this trees. You're in the landscaping field, but I also know that you are in the snow industry. I utilized some of your skill set, and I know some of the other companies that you work with are snow-oriented. How'd you get started in the snow industry?
Oh, that was it was torturous. They basically dropped 12 of us off in a condo complex with like 5,000 units and a truckload of shovels, and the guy basically said, "I'll be back at midday," and then they brought us some cold frozen pizza. But that's how I got started, and it was just one of those things. As the years went by and the winters came and went, I said to myself, "There's got to be something better. There's got to be an easier way of doing this." And you join associations and things like that, and you realize that there is. And the people, back in the days, they didn't share information. They thought it was a secret on showing you how to shovel a sidewalk correctly. It's not a secret. It's not. It's not the CIA. It's just a landscape company, and nobody shared it. Now we have peer groups that make things so much easier. You're learning before you even go and shovel your first driveway. You already kind of have some history and a little bit of training. Like, okay, now I kind of know what I'm doing. Back then you would just, I'll see you later, and it's like you're looking at this mountain full of condominiums. That's how I was thrown in. And the same thing I did with landscaping and tree. I just evolved and and develop systems and procedures and talk to people that I know knew more than me, and you know, all this snow melting stuff, and you know, like yourself, we went and got Dale Keep to show us how to make liquid salt. It's like we didn't know how, but we knew people that did. But now we know how because we made the investment. It made us that much more successful making that investment.
Yeah, no, that's true. There are some very good people that helps out there. When you need someone like you mentioned, that was Dale Keep was a top man in the liquids. We didn't know it. You know, you need that. It isn't. You know, it is simple. But there's more than just simple. Just because it's simple doesn't mean it's not. It makes it easy. I know you're saying simple. I know you're not saying easy. You know, because it isn't easy. You have a condominium complex. There are things that you need to know about how the setting, how the people operate, when timing, all that kind of stuff is. So simple, yes. I got a feeling also it's a little tough. You know, unless, like I said, like you just get thrown out there. Juan, that was pretty good. I like that story. It took about 12 years and stand out there and just start plowing and shoveling. But you guys did it though. That's the school of hard knocks.
We did, but it almost made me quit and never look at snow again. But I figured if I survived that, anything after that would be much better. But you know, the years moved on, and they leave you in a plow truck, and you become a supervisor. But that mentality in my head, or that suffering that I suffered, was always in my head. Like, man, it's so tough out there. What do we need to do to make these guys better or more efficient, more productive? They don't have to be out there with frostbite or anything like that. And that's when you start thinking about systems and processes and procedures, how to make things more efficient, easier for the men, but deliver to the client. And that's where you come up with these processes that I still go to places I'm like, well, why are you doing it like that? You could do it 5 other ways that are more effective and more efficient.
Well, how do you look? I know what you've done, but I think the audience knows. What do you do to prepare for a storm? How do you prepare?
Well, you know, most companies, smaller companies, they probably prepare like 2 hours before the snow hits. They're like, oh, we're getting a snowstorm tonight, and then now they're trying to figure out how to put the plow, or if the plow even works. You know, once you get a little bit more advanced and you have your meetings and you put the best minds or the best people together, you come up with these great processes and procedures. You use them, you utilize them, even if they're not perfect. You know, even if they're like 50% of what you actually need is 50% less you got to deal with at that moment. But, you know, we got to a point that we were very good at it, very efficient. When I first met you, you were there, you know, from the beginning of the storm to the end. And as you notice that I can take on some of that stuff, you started handing me more and more and more, and I saw less and less and less of you and your partner. So as that took place, then I didn't see you at all. But that's the whole purpose. It's not that you didn't want to be involved anymore, is that you have more important things to do than to be there scheduling trucks, equipment, material. But that usually starts in some cases 4 or 5 days before the storm even gets near us. Yeah. You already start preparing. Now you can't wait to the day before and realize you need 300 tons of salt because nobody's going to bring it to you. I don't care who you are. They're not bringing it to you. So you start preparing your materials, your equipment, you know, making sure that you have enough men for the upcoming event, that you change whatever little nuances you ran into the last storm, and it just gets better and better the way you tweak it. Every year goes by, you get better and better, but it gets to the point that I was giving like half of my work to another supervisor, so now I focus more on the, you know, complaints from the clients, because that's probably the most difficult thing, is to answer that phone, and that's probably what people don't do, and they should answer. The faster you answer, regardless if they're upset, the better it's going to be, that relationship. Just answer it. So I knew that was the least favorite part of probably the entire snow industry, is answering that phone at 1 o'clock in the morning when the hospital's calling or the campus is calling. So I focused more on that, on dealing with these large management companies and our clients. But because of the procedures, I was able to hand off some of it to my other supervisors, and now I wasn't stuck with checking every truck and seeing if the mechanics fixed it or not. I just had to talk to like 3 guys instead of 20 guys, just like you did, just like you stepped up and moved on. But without that stuff, you can't do it. And then the same thing, after the storm's over, 24 hours later, make sure all your billing is done, make sure you sit down again quickly. It doesn't have to be half-day meetings, or because people start complaining about, oh, there's all this unapplied time. No, it's a 15-minute meeting. What worked, what didn't work, what are some possible solutions, and then some of the guys sometimes say some solutions that are just outrageous, but if they're plausible or you think it works, then we try them out for the next storm. Always listen to your men, because they're the guys in the trenches. You got to give those guys respect, regardless that it's difficult for me and stressful because I'm dealing with the clients. But at the end of the day, I'm in the office. I'm not out in 2 feet of snow shoveling. So if they say something's going to work better, listen to it carefully.
Yeah, that's very good. It's funny. It brings back a story, Juan. We did some work together in some big storms. And you're correct with this thing here. Yes, I did move back, and we created tools together, systems, flows, pre-season, pre-vent, all those things to give you the tools, because I want to give the tools to the people doing it and then step away. And I did do that. And it reminds me of a time that we had a 12, 15-inch storm that was brewing. And I remember I was skiing at Killington in Vermont. And I remember you were doing your preparation, and I said, this is a 12, 15 inches. It's not that big of a storm, but it's not sure not a little puppy. So I said, could you give me, could you put your phone there, and I want to hear what's going on. If I have a comment or two, I would. I try to keep away. And I remember you got all the stuff together. But I do remember my partner called me up like the day before the storm. And he said, okay, Dominic, are you ready? When are you coming in, and when are you going to be there? And I'm going, hey, I'm in Killington skiing. And then it started, okay? You're talking now, this is two different mentalities now. You're talking now one of control or command and control, and one of collaborative. And I said, no way, I don't need to be there. I'm going to be in their way, if anything. So, you give responsibility to somebody like yourself, but you have to give them the respect. If something's always going to go wrong, but it was a kind of a aha moment. Wait a second, I don't have to be there, and that's the difference. So it's a mindset with that's for sure. But that was a funny story. But I had to tell you, Juan, sometimes I'd come in the room just to see you command and command a session, a pre-season. It was like watching an artist before a storm. So it was fun. Now, Juan, you had mentors all your life. What do you think? Do you personally have a mentor now, or before?
Yeah, I've had several of them at different levels for different reasons. I mean, if I was a baseball player, I'd probably have one, but because it's a business entity that we're in, then I needed mentors in the finance side, I needed mentors in the training side, I needed mentors in the sales side to understand it, and I think that's what makes me who I am today, that I can go into any tree or landscape company and fit right in and kind of understand the management, the labor force. That's a very delicate balance. Management and labor force. There always seems to be a wall that, those guys don't do nothing, they're driving around in the trucks. It appears to them, not realizing that without them selling, you won't be working. So they're doing something in the background. But yeah, mentors, there's been several of them, and I'm actually back with a mentor, for an old mentor again now that I got back into training heavily. And he's, I call him up and hash it out with him. We disagree most of the time, but I think, if we agreed, then I wouldn't need him. You know what I mean? So it's like, well, what do I need a mentor for? I'm calling you because I'm doing something, it's not coming out the way I wanted to, so now I'm coming to you. So obviously we're going to disagree. But it works well. I help him. He helps me. And that's what it's about. It's like a father-son kind of thing. Mentorship. You're very close to these people. And you become, lifetime friends. They know what you like and what you don't like, and how does Juan accept information better? They know that already, so they deliver it in that way. It's a great thing. The same thing. I have people that I mentor now. There's a couple of guys that I know are going to be very, very successful, and one is very, very, very young, fresh out of UConn, and he's been doing fabulously. I've only been working him for like a year and a half, and he's at a level that I've seen guys do it for 5-6 years, and they're nowhere near where he's at in a year and a half. But I think that young mind is like a sponge, it absorbs and records everything, and it's amazing. Then when you're trying to change me, if I have a habit, it's going to take a while to change it.
You definitely go further, faster. That's that is a thing. You look at these, even these, like you mentioned, you have someone that's the mold. You look at these baseball players. You look at these basketball players. You look at these golfers, like the Tiger Woods and the LeBron James. They have coaches. They are getting mentored. And I always bring that back when I don't need this. I could do it myself. I always bring that story in. Wait a second. Why does LeBron James need a mentor or something? What? He's the best. How come? Well, that's the reason. Because you get better, and the better get better. So that's good. It's good. It's a kind of a thread of a lot of the conversations that I'm having, and I find it to be interesting that all of us have, all of us, the titans in this thing, have, and it's a very good thing to have, and also you are also giving back, and that's very, very good, Juan. Juan, I have to compliment you here. As you are, the audience may not know this or not. You are president-elect of a new association, and it's the NHLA, National Hispanic Landscape Alliance. Tell us about it.
Well, the NHLA was created by a group of peers from our industry who realized some of the things that you and I realized, but never took it to where they took it to. They decided to make this association, particularly for the Latino workforce, put it together so they can hash out some of their problems with the workforce, which was basically, most important to them was training. How do they train their men when they were never trained themselves? So basically they would try it and it didn't work, and they decided to put this association together, and it's been coming along quite well. But it was a lot of work for these guys to put it together, because the first three guys were for completely three opposite ends of the country. And they weren't using the magnificent technology that you're allowing me to play with today. So they had to fly into different places, very costly, sometimes 2-3 times a month to have half-day meetings. So imagine how costly that was. But they were driven, and they were motivated to do something, and they put it together.
So what is your function as a president, or what will your functions be?
Well, usually how they say the president is just the face of a well-oiled machine behind that person, and that's exactly what I am. It's my turn to be the president of the association, and I'm going to deliver on certain agendas that we have on the board, particularly education and training, because that's my big thing. We got to get all the finances straight. I'm just kind of like a leader, face. For a couple of years, and we want to do so many things, but like I said, I don't like to do 100 things and only do half of it. I'd rather do 10 things and do them very well, and be recognized and known for that, instead of, well, he attempted to do 100 things and never finished any of them. I'd rather just do 10 and do them well. Mm-hmm.
Any projects on your mind?
Yeah, we're right now. I'm talking with some big corporate sponsors, because at the end, one of my goals is to be able to deliver training at a very cost-efficient way to these companies that are like $1 million or less. The big kahunas, they can afford to have all the Juan Torres there they want, and the Domenics, and call Mary Annie, and they go out there, and we all kinds of stuff. But for the smaller guy, it's kind of hard. A $1 million company, you're going to have 15, 20 guys. You can't send 10 of your guys because it's very costly. Not only is it costly because you got to pay a couple of $1,000s per guy to send, but the revenue that you're losing, at the same time. So then you got to make all that up. So my goal is to get some kind of, I don't want to call it sponsorship. I want to call it more like partnership with some corporate networks that I have, and it's working out well. I think we're going to do very well and be able to deliver that. And it's a lot of work because as you know how it is, they're always expecting a return on their investment. So. Yeah.
Great. I wish you all the luck there. Juan, the last question. We're getting close to the hour here, and this is the one of the threads. And what was the one thing you most wish somebody told you when you first started out in this business? What did you think you needed to have them tell you so you could have become more successful, Juan?
The hard work ahead. It was, you go in saying, well, I'm going to have to work hard, but you have no idea how hard it is, how stressful it is, the dams that you run into, and you're looking at these huge hurdles in front of you. You're just crying and cringing on how am I going to get over this or around this. And I just wish somebody just said, kid, I have it all figured out for you, and handed me a booklet, like a key. Here's the roadblock, and I have the key to this roadblock, and I can just open the gate and go around it. It would be wonderful. It wasn't like that. I was running into roadblocks, and some of the roadblocks were landing on me, actually. But you survive it because of you're driven. But really, if I should have joined associations earlier in my life. I saw it as like, well, I can't pay $800 a year for this association or that association. It is probably the best things any small business can do is get together. That's where, go to these meetings. Go, I know it's costly sometimes, but for a couple of $1,000 and you spend 3 or 4 days, whatever city it is, you come back with so much knowledge, and you make friends, and then they come and visit you. You visit them. You learn from each other. I didn't have any of that. I said, I didn't have any of that. I only had that towards the end when I was with you, and we would go to different places and have Mr. Mariani come and visit us, and he will point out a couple of things, and which is great. It's like, well, other than that, at the beginning it was rough. It was like, you're snowboarding, but it's not on snow. It's like on the avalanche. It's just you're going forward, but how are you going to hit one of those trees or not? You don't know. So
kind of like we needed a roadmap, as per se.
Yeah.
So, but it's an excellent point, Juan, and I want to thank you very much for taking the time out, Juan. And I know the viewers that we have in store here got a lot of value listening to you today. So I really appreciate you joining us here at the summit.
My pleasure to be here with you guys. Thank you, everyone.
Juan, if there is like a question that they thought of later on, or a way to get a hold of you, would you like? Is there a way of getting a hold of you?
Yeah, they could either email me. I think you have the link, or they can call, which the phone number is also available through you.
What do you have as phone number?
This is the 860-913-1019.
Perfect. I'll put it into some of the correspondence I have with them, and I do appreciate you would take the time to answer a lot of the questions in the audience. So this is it for the Snow Millionaire Secrets today. Please, if there's comments, you're right there. Put comments, questions, and I'll be popping over there in a moment to answer any of those questions. Again, we'll see you tomorrow. We have an amazing guest, Sam Granados, and a true pioneer in the snow industry. So thank you once again for joining us. Goodbye from myself, my great team behind the scenes, and of course, our great guest, Juan Torres.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Ciao, ciao.